Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered how massive enterprise networks keep running smoothly, even when links fail, traffic spikes, or routes change in real time? How routers seem to instantly know the best path to send data? That intelligence doesn't happen by accident. That's where OSPF comes in. And once you truly understand it, enterprise networking starts to make a lot more sense. Welcome to Bluehat Cybersec Academy. Today we're talking about OSPF, what it is, how it works behind the scenes, how areas really function, and how enterprises actually use OSPF in real networks. No dry theory, no memorization traps. Just clean, practical understanding you can actually apply. So first things first, what exactly is OSPF? OSPF stands for Open Shortest Path First. It's a dynamic routing protocol used inside an organization's network, what we call an interior gateway protocol. Instead of guessing routes or relying on outdated information, OSPF builds a complete map of the network. Every router understands the topology around it. That's why OSPF converges fast, and that's exactly why enterprises trust it. A good way to think about OSPF is like Google Maps, but for routers. Each router learns who its neighbors are, shares information about its links, builds a full picture of the network, and then calculates the best possible path for traffic. And all of that happens in a very specific sequence. Step 1 is OSPF neighbor discovery. It starts with routers discovering each other. OSPF routers send something called hello packets to find neighbors. But here's the catch. Routers don't just become neighbors automatically. Certain settings have to match, like the area ID, timers, and authentication. If they match, the routers form a neighbor relationship. If they don't, routing never happens. Step 2 is all about the designated router and backup election. Once neighbors are established, something interesting happens on Ethernet networks. Instead of every router talking to every other router, which would be chaos, OSPF elects a designated router, called the DR, and a backup designated router, or BDR. These routers act like coordinators, handling routing updates on behalf of everyone else. This keeps the network efficient and stable. Step 3 is sharing network intelligence with LSAs. After that, routers begin sharing real intelligence. They exchange link state advertisements, or LSAs. These LSAs describe which networks exist, how they're connected, and how fast those links are. All of this information gets stored in a shared database called the link state database. And this part is critical. Every OSPF router has the same database. Everyone sees the same network picture. That shared understanding is what allows OSPF to make smart decisions. Once that database is built, each router independently runs the shortest path first algorithm. This is where the math happens. The router calculates the fastest and most efficient path to every destination. No guessing, no hop counting, just pure logic based on bandwidth. When the calculation is done, the best routes are installed into the routing table, and traffic starts flowing. And here's the beauty of OSPF. If something changes in the network, it recalculates fast. That's what makes it so reliable in enterprise environments. Now, to really understand OSPF, there are a few core concepts you need to be comfortable with. Every OSPF router has a router ID. Think of it as the router's identity. Most of the time, it's chosen automatically, usually the highest loopback IP address, or if there's no loopback, the highest active interface IP. This ID is how routers recognize and track each other. Then there's the OSPF metric, called cost. OSPF doesn't care about how many hops a path has. It cares about speed. Higher bandwidth links get lower cost, and lower cost paths are always preferred. That's one of the main reasons OSPF performs so well in modern enterprise networks. As networks grow larger, managing all of this information becomes harder, and that's where OSPF areas come into play. OSPF uses areas to divide a large network into smaller, more manageable sections. At the center of it all is Area 0, also known as the backbone. Every other area must connect to Area 0, directly or indirectly. If Area 0 goes down, inter-area routing stops. That's how important it is. Beyond the backbone, enterprises use different area types depending on their needs. Standard areas carry full routing information. Stub areas block external routes to keep routing tables smaller. NSSA areas allow limited external routing and are commonly used for branch offices. The choice always depends on network size, performance needs, and design goals. So how does all of this play out in real enterprise networks? OSPF is everywhere. In campus networks, it connects multiple buildings and distribution layers with a clean, scalable design. So, when it comes to branch office deployments, you'll often see the headquarters running Area 0, while branches are placed in Stub or NSSA areas. This setup, really helps reduce routing overhead and improves overall stability. OSPF also shines in high availability designs. We're talking about multiple links, multiple paths, and fast failover. OSPF just handles it all naturally. In hybrid environments, it's common to run OSPF internally while using BGP to connect to service providers. This is one of the most common real-world designs. There's a reason OSPF has stood the test of time. It converges fast, it scales extremely well, it's vendor-neutral, it's predictable, secure, and proven over decades. OSPF just works. So here's the big takeaway. If you're working in enterprise networking, OSPF isn't optional. It's foundational. Once you understand how neighbors form, how LSAs flow, and how areas are designed, OSPF stops feeling complex and starts feeling powerful. That's the moment you move from just configuring routers to actually designing networks. Thanks for watching Bluehat Cybersec Academy. If this video added value to your day, give it a like, share it with someone who could benefit, and subscribe for more practical cybersecurity and networking content. Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how you're applying these concepts in your labs or real-world networks. Until next time, stay curious, stay secure, and keep building smarter networks.